Welcome to the Revenge of Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things Revenge of and more. My name is Jeff Weiser, and today we've got a very special episode. We're checking in with our friend Tristan Eaton. We had the pleasure of sitting down with him a few weeks ago to talk about his new Marvel project, which is awesome. He explains the whole thing in depth. But before we get into that, let me just run down a couple things we got going on this week. Friday, we're having an open pinball tournament, so come on by. Sign up starts at 5. Probably starts at 6 or 7. I don't really know. We'll post about it. And then Saturday, we've got Commander Night at 6 p.m. Oh, we also have Draft on Friday. I forgot that. Draft on Friday at 5. Commander Night on Saturday at 6. And then Sunday is the beginning of Pinball League Season 8. So if you haven't signed up quite yet for that, head over to the link in our bio over on IG, and you can sign up there. We still got spaces open. So with all that being said, let's check in with our friend Tristan. All right, we're here today with another interview in our interview series with artist and friend of ours, Tristan Eaton. Hello.
What's up?
Thank you for coming. We are so fortunate to be surrounded by so many incredible creatives, and Tristan is in our minds, you're one of the coolest people we get to talk to. We've been fans forever. And now, we're friends and we get to see the process, which is like a dream come true. But you have some amazing stuff going on, and that's why you're here today to talk to us about it. But, we'll talk about everything too while we're at it. But, talk to us about your new project.
Well, thanks for having me on. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I love your whole ecosystem you guys have built.
Yeah.
And we're kind of neighbors. I live right down the street from Revenge of.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I saw the window display before I knew what you guys were. And then for a long time, I saw on Google Maps that it was a comic book shop before you opened. So I was really excited to get a new comic book shop in the neighborhood, and then just really pleased to find out you guys are all such cool people. And the stuff you guys do for the community of people around you is so badass. No one else is doing it the way you guys do it.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's so cool. I'm fans of yours.
Yeah, it's funny because when we started, we had a mission of how we wanted to operate and the things that we wanted to do, and it was just so weird that people aren't doing those things. You know what I mean? It seemed so easy to be a cool comic book store. It was kind of weird that no one else is doing fun stuff. But we're also we're fortunate to be close to people like you that get to collaborate and, do amazing things. The mural you did for us is it blows my mind every time I pull into the parking lot.
Thanks,
look at this thing.
Thanks, dude. Well, I think in response to why aren't other people doing it this way, people are lazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lazy people out there. And I think that when you're really passionate and you get to do something you love, quality comes kind of standard, so it's nice to see you guys have that passion around it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the same goes for you.
Thanks,
everything you produce is incredible, and I don't know how. I mean, as a creative in a different way, I know how hard it can be to put the energy into something, and every time I see stuff from you, it's wow, that's incredible.
Thanks, man. Well, we got to work together on the Kid Cudi comic, which was great. That was our first kind of official project together.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd done a cover for a real comic book company, which is really cool. Because I grew up on comics, like most of us did. And I had a unique exposure to comics because my family moved to England when I was 8 years old. Yeah. And I discovered a Silver Surfer comic when I was a kid at the corner shop and became instantly hooked. But Britain's a little different because there's a whole other world of comic books out there.
Yeah.
From Beano and the Dandy, the old school comic strip comics that have been around since World War II, but also you have 2000 AD and Judge Dredd and all of that.
Right.
And that comic is kind of like heavy metal, where it's 4 or 5 stories all by different illustrators in each issue.
Right. Yeah.
And that opened me up to a world of underground comics in Britain.
That's awesome.
And underground comic illustrators, like Rob Bliss's one. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And every weekend I would skateboard from like comic book shop to comic book shop all over London and seek out the weirdest of the comics. Like I loved X-Men, but like Captain America was like way too commercial, dude. And I loved all the underground stuff. And I discovered like Jamie Hewlett and Tank Girl when it was like fresh out, when it was brand new. And that kind of stuff really got me going. And I've always had this attraction towards underground art, either in the art of skateboarding, the art of graffiti, or the art of underground comics.
Yeah.
And I feel really lucky that I was exposed to all that over there.
For sure.
Because over here, a lot of people don't know about the whole other world, but it gave me a taste for the weirder stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you've come in with your mother a few times, and she's got like an incredible taste in comics as well. Like, blows my mind.
Listen, man, my mom is the art critic no one deserves. As a son who's a painter, she knows her stuff, man. Yeah. I've had to sit her down and be like, Mom, just tell me you like it. Okay, don't tell me the social impact of this, that, or the other. But yeah, my mom is a smart lady. My parents had a cool story, just real quick. Like, my mom was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. She was an actress. She came from a tiny, nothing little town in Wales called Marloes, and they kind of lived in, kind of in poverty, like, on the coast. And my mom made her way out and became a part of the Royal Shakespeare Company. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, and was in this world tour of Midsummer Night's Dream. And when the tour came to Los Angeles, my dad went to see the play, fell in love with her, banged on the backstage door, and ended up joining their tour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like they tell stories about the tour bus, all the actors, and then my dad in the convertible Cadillac with a suitcase full of weed following them. And by the time the tour got to the East Coast, the story goes my mom had to call her boyfriend in England and say, we're breaking up. I married an American. So anyway, fast forward now, she was a professor at University of Michigan, and she's now getting her PhD at the University of Wales in creative writing.
Wow.
So I'm very blessed to have a mom that I can talk about ideas with, talk about art with, and stuff like that. Like, I'm very lucky to have her. She's awesome, and all my friends love her more than me, man. You know what I mean? That's true, dude. So yeah, she loves you guys too, and she's a fixture at my art shows and all that stuff.
Incredible.
Yeah. Shout out Jillian.
Indeed. So you have a background in loving comics. Do you have I know a little bit about aspirations you have in the comic book industry, and obviously what we're going to talk about a little later. And doing that cover was awesome for us, and I'm sure it was exciting for you. Do you have aspirations of doing more covers and more stuff like that? I
don't know, man. Maybe. I have a weird, or had a weird relationship to real comic book world early on, because, I think for me personally as an artist, I, like many other artists, wanted to grow up and just make paintings and be a fine artist. Yeah. It's not likely for many people at all. Yeah. And you have to find a way to make a living. And I, in London, actually met some artists who were way older, who were making a living as illustrators. Yeah. And clocked that, wow, okay, you can make a living drawing cartoons for, magazines or whatever it is, and actually make a living that way. Yeah. And that was really useful knowledge, because I thought, okay, well, at least I can hone a part of me to make a living doing that while I'm searching out this bigger path. Right. And that was really useful. But I started doing illustrations in Detroit. After England, my family moved to Detroit when I was 15, 16. Uh-huh. And I started doing art for underground raves and nightclubs and radio stations. And next thing I know, I'm making a living as an 18-year-old doing that, living in my own house and killing it. And and it was awesome. And I amazingly somehow got in touch, or someone got in touch with me from Fisher Price, and I started doing toy design when I was about 18. And I was faxing drawings from Kinko's to Buffalo, New York, to Fisher Price. It was the craziest, wildest thing. Later on, when we started Kidrobot, all of that would become very useful experience, you know. But before that, I transferred to School of Visual Arts in New York. And looking back on it now, I was there with some pretty amazing people. James Jean was at SVA when I was there.
Wow.
Esau Andrews, who's amazing. My friend Rate, who went on to become the creative director of Supreme. Like all these people, Kareem Black, the photographer. We were all there together. And I had a few teachers who were in comics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one was a lady named Dame Darcy, who has a comic called Meat Cake. And she's awesome, dude. She has naturally elven ears, would wear Victorian dresses to class, and had a punk band, and is in like B horror movies, and was teaching us like underground comics as a college course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And her and I ended up becoming really good friends. We went and did graffiti in Mexico together one time. It was awesome. But she introduced me to some people in the comic industry. Like, I think his name was Mike Diana. He was the first guy to ever have a comic book band in America.
Oh, wow.
It was called like Dead Jesus Baby or something. The internet might need to fact check me on that. But interesting people making a living in comics.
Yeah.
Another course I had was with a guy named Eric Dosher, who worked for DC.
Yeah.
And he was awesome. I got to meet Jim Higgins, who was an editor at Dark Horse. He came and talked to the class, all these things, and I was getting exposure to like the real comic book world for the first time.
Yeah.
Blown away. And Eric Dosher took my whole class to the DC Comics headquarters.
Oh, cool.
In Manhattan. Yeah. And they owned Mad. And Mad magazine was as influential as normal comic books for me. Like,
for sure.
The kind of humor I brought into some of my street art hijinks later in life, a lot of it came from Mad magazine, you know?
Yeah, that's where you get that taste of like subversive, like sort of
the sarcasm and nothing being sacred, you know? So we got to go to the Mad magazine office and the DC office, and I remember talking to some of the artists and being like, well, so how much do you get paid, man? Like, how much do you get paid per page?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they told me how much they got paid. I was like, what? Wow. And it was really disheartening.
Yeah.
You know? So, my brother and I, Matt, like we grew up in a tiny family. We moved all the time, and we don't come from money, man.
Yeah.
Like, we've always been kind of running from poverty.
Yeah.
I dropped out of art school because we couldn't afford tuition, so I never graduated. Excuse me. So I just knew that wasn't an option to go that route.
Yeah, which is interesting to me because, when we started our journey, like I didn't know. I mean, I still know very little about this comic book industry, and it blows my mind. Like, it's like, how do people make a living doing this? Because I mean, like the level of some of the art that goes into these comics is pretty impressive, but like, I don't know if anybody makes any money off of any of it.
I don't know, man. I mean, when you're talking about getting like $50 a page.
Yeah.
It's like insane. I don't know what the rates are now, but
I don't think it's much different than
well, Scott was telling us a little bit, if I remember, but it is like, what was it, like 8 pages a week or something? Sometimes a little bit more depending on like the schedule. And for someone like Scott, who is he came up with
Scott Koblish. He's a X-Men cover guy.
He came up with John Romita and the Romita Rangers. So his whole job was to learn how to kind of see other people's influences and bring it together and like fill in pages when someone was short a page or couldn't deliver on time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wild.
Just like a hired gun.
Yeah, basically.
But let me tell you this, man. I remember at the time, hustling to kind of like try and get work around New York City and getting a job via an advertising agency to do some comic book style art for a campaign. And the check was like $10,000 for what was like 2 pages of art.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of like in the TV industry. It's like we do a whole TV show for less money than we do the ad for the TV show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of like, well, I guess we'll just sell our souls then.
And I remember, seeing very clearly like, okay, I need to take this route seriously to keep myself afloat because in New York, man, making a living is rough there. I moved there in 98.
Yeah.
And it was still rough.
Yeah.
So I sought out getting an art rep, like an actual art agent, and I ended up getting signed by a company called Bernstein and Andreuli, and they were around for like 50 years before I got there. Like an old school New York art agent, it was great. And I remember going there in a suit. I was like 22 with a suit and like my briefcase art portfolio.
Yeah.
And I got turned down. And there's a woman, rest in peace, named Francine Rosenfeld, who was like an angel for me. She and Tony Andreoli had this meeting with me, looked through my work, and he said to me, like, look, you're not ready, kid. Like, you're all over the place. And I was like, yeah, because I need work. I'm showing you everything I could do. Like, please help me. And he told me just to narrow my focus and make a portfolio that was more predictable so he can sell me, you know? Yeah. And Francine really fought for me. And I took his advice and came back a year later, and I had improved a lot. Yeah. Doing illustrations for like Village Voice, New York Press Magazine, editorial cartoons, you know? And she was like, you need to sign this kid. You know, look how much he's improved in the last year. Yeah. And they brought me on board, and it saved my butt. And a year later, we ended up launching Kidrobot.
Yeah, so wow. I know about your past in Kidrobot, but I don't feel like I actually know the story behind any of that. Like, I can
give you the abbreviated version.
Yeah, give us the brief. I'm sure it was a very long road, but
I'll tell you something cool. One of the toys a lot of people know from my work at Kidrobot is the Dunny, and it's what's called a platform toy with a cute guy with the big ears. Yeah, and it's designed so that every artist does their interpretation of the paint job. Right. You make the mold once, and the paint jobs you make over and over and over. It's a pretty like economically smart approach to making toys.
For sure.
But I knew the founder, Paul Budnitz, because we're working on an animated film together. I was like 22. And he was importing like mini discs from Asia.
Oh, wow.
And found out about this underground scene of experimental art toys in Hong Kong, and showed me. And it was like Michael Lau, Eric So, Jason Sui, these like, you know, revolutionary toy designers who are making toys that look like us, you know, with the, you know, carrying speakers and spray cans and all this stuff. And they're very kind of avant-garde. And I think a lot of those people had connections in Shenzhen and Guangzhou to people in factories, and they can make them really easy. Yeah. And rotary molds are very cheap. Like a rotary mold might be $600, where an injection mold would be $3,000.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between the two things? Because I know what an injection mold is, but
good
just
question,
for people that are listening, I'm sure. Give us a little color on that.
So a rotary mold is like, you know, the shape of the object. There's a mold, and it injects like hot liquid plastic, PVC, polyvinyl chloride, and then it rotates, and centrifugal force pulls the plastic to the outside of the mold.
Okay.
So then it's a hollow piece of plastic. Yeah. And the look and feel of the soft vinyl PVC from a roto mold is part of the delectable, fetishistic nature of vinyl art toys, because they're like soft and just have this like luscious smell. The injection molds are like what a G.I. Joe's made out of, you know, where it's like a plate with cavities, and they inject the hot plastic, and it's solid. Very expensive. Prohibitively expensive back then. Right. So a lot of our early toys were, you know, just hunks of like roto PVC, and it was awesome, man. But Paul and I were working on this animated thing, and he was already importing stuff from Asia, so we already had a store built. He kind of reskinned it, threw some of those toys on it, and was kind of importing them. And he was like, I want to make some of our own. I'm like, let's go. I was like, my background is toy design and graffiti. I was made in a laboratory for this moment, you know? So I did the logo. I kind of gave them a refresh, and started designing toys because we want to start making our own. And started curating artists. So it was in New York City, and I started reaching out to artists. All the old school founders of graffiti were the people I wanted to go after. So I was talking with Scene from the Bronx. If anyone out there has seen the movie Style Wars, he was like the god and star of that movie. And I got Dr. Revolt and Quick and all these like legends of graffiti to start making toys. And that was really cool.
That's super cool.
We also made the first ever Cheech Wizard toy, going back to Underground Comics, which was Von Baudet's character. And, you know, he's like one of the 1970s psychedelic underground comic guys.
Wow.
And I reached out to his son, Mark, got all the art, and we made the first ever Cheech Wizard toy. Because Cheech Wizard was like, the way I put it, like the Mickey Mouse of graffiti.
Yeah.
He was on every subway train. You know? So cool. So we went to Hong Kong. We talked to factories. We built everything from the ground up. And we launched the Dunny toy with an exhibition featuring artists hand painting the 20-inch version of it.
Wow.
And it was all being kind of planned while I was in China. And I came home and showed up to the opening, and it was like a shock. There was about 2,000 people in line to get in. And it just rocked the block, man.
Wow.
That's
And
amazing.
it was, everyone from like Run DMC to Diane von Furstenberg to like all these like crazy famous people did their versions of our toy.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, Kidrobot has a store in, Soho in New York, LA, San Francisco, London, Miami, everywhere. And it was like a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a revolution of a medium.
You definitely set the standard. I know that, like, because moving forward, I mean, there's tons of iterations of other toys trying to do the same thing, right?
For sure. And the Dunny itself got copied a lot. But I'm very proud of that part of my life because it created so many art careers for people.
Mm-hmm.
We would put certain artists in the Dunny series. They'd get fans. People start collecting them, and then they get to make their own real toy, real sculpt. Then they're doing exhibitions, and I saw that happen like 30, 40 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But then this other thing happened that was really cool. The other toy is called the Money, and that was the one that's like sold blank. And people would customize those themselves.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I saw happen was this like huge generation of artists getting discovered by customizing those toys specifically.
So cool.
And like mailmen and lawyers and accountants who are like blowing people's minds with what they can do.
Yeah.
And having their own exhibitions that we had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
All over the world. And I remember like one year I was in Miami and I was painting a mural like before Wynwood was like run by Wynwood Walls and it was a mural festival called Primary Flight. And I was painting this wall, and I guess I was painting the wrong wall. And someone came up and was like, yo, man, that's so-and-so's wall. You should probably like figure this out because you're going to get in trouble, man. And I knew whose wall it was, and he was a gangster. He just got out of prison. And I was like, oh, snap. And they're all inside. And they're like, you better go talk to them, man. I'm like, well, this is the only wall I want to paint, man. I don't want to paint the one around the corner or in the alleyway. I'm painting the one on the corner. Like I'm facing everybody, So I'm like, all right, let me go deal with this. And I walk in knowing that like this might be a really bad conversation with a bunch of people that hate me. And there's like 8 Miami graffiti dudes all around a table, and I walk up and they're all sitting there painting my toys.
Oh, wow.
My God.
I was like, oh, what's up, guys? I'm gonna finish the wall out there. Cool. I'll get you some more. And the cultural cachet of it was real and went global. It was really, really interesting, man. And then all those toys went into the MoMA and the Smithsonian and became like a whole thing.
Was that a big was that the big stepping moment for you? Like creating all that?
Game changer.
Yeah, and then that kind
Absolute
of
game
opened all the
changer.
doors for you.
I mean, I had like 4 or 5 years of total poverty in New York before that. There was like 2 years where I never even left the 5 boroughs because I didn't have any money.
Oh my God.
It was pretty rough. So it was a definite game changer.
Yeah.
Opened a lot of doors
Yeah.
and allowed me to segue into starting my own design studio called Thunderdog. And a lot of people wanted that, that juice that I brought to Kidrobot. So I started getting hired by, a lot of advertising agencies, a lot of sneaker brands and like Hasbro, doing consulting gigs, that kind of thing.
Amazing.
And I put together an awesome team to do that in New York for like a good 10 years.
Yeah.
We were in Dumbo, Brooklyn. It was amazing.
Wow.
So yeah, it was total game changer.
Cool. When would you say, I'm curious, like your current style, which, I mean, your style is, I don't know how you would describe it, this like collage-y, sort of incredible mixed medium, like when did that kind of like click for you? Like when did you find that?
I think that the journey that I've been on with my public art and mural work, it was the mural work that forced me to hone in where I wanted to go as a painter.
Yeah.
Before that, I had absolute kind of split personality, where I had my design studio by day and I was making my own paintings at home. I didn't think they were good enough. They're okay. And I had a secret identity under the name Trusto, Trusto. And we were doing crazy shit. We were making fake street signs, but like as professionally as the city, and putting them everywhere. We did it like Fight Club style. We shipped packages anonymously to volunteers across the country with tools and everything. They put them up.
Amazing.
We were making fake products, putting them in grocery stores. We were wild, man. Like we made a nose job in a can. We just said grab can, smash face. We did all kinds of wild stuff. And that was where kind of the writer in me was coming out a little bit.
Yeah.
But to be creatively satisfied, I needed all these outlets at the same time.
Yeah.
And for years, I'd been searching for what was really me as an artist.
Right.
And that took me down all these roads of toy design and creative direction and graffiti. I was painting motorcycles for a while. I worked in print shops, silk screening, and as a cartoonist, like so many things. And it was all like, okay, I'm okay at that, but I don't love it.
Right.
Or like I love it, but it's not paying anything and I can't make a living off it. I need to figure out this equation.
Yeah.
And the reason I moved to LA is because I wrote a TV show for Disney by chance through a friend of mine named Mike Moon, who threw me a bone. And I wrote something really silly, and they loved it, and that's why I came out.
Okay,
my life can be a little random, but it was basically Disney TV Animation was looking for outside talent.
Yeah,
and I pitched this idea, and it got through all the hurdles, and I came out here, and it was under development for like a couple of years, and then died, and I had another major project of mine also die. I could do a whole podcast on it, but I got permission to paint these World War II sea forts in the North Sea in between England and France.
Whoa.
And they were pirate radio stations in the 60s after the war, and I got permission to paint them.
Wow.
And we convinced Google to give us like $3 million to go paint them and make a documentary on it. And they would satellite map it so you could see it in Street View.
Wow.
Cool.
And we were about ready to go, and they pulled the plug.
Oh,
horrible!
God damn it!
So the Disney show died. The Seafort project died, and I was getting really sick and tired of the branding work I was doing, working for clients. I just didn't care anymore, and I think I realized that I had to get out and change things because the work was getting mediocre.
Yeah.
Because I didn't give a shit. And that's what scared me more than anything. Was like, I can't do mediocre crap.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm not in love with it, it's going to come out horrible.
Then you're just working. You're not really like, you're not enjoying.
It sucks. So I got tired of all of it and felt like, okay, there's got to be a way to take everything I've learned and everything I like doing and dumping it into one bucket. And I had a chance to paint a mural in Little Italy. And I was like, all right, fuck it, let me try it. And that's where this came from.
Wow.
Was like, a couple decades of exploring different artistic avenues and then forcing them all together.
Yeah.
And then for the first time, I stepped back and looked at what I painted. It was like, okay, all of me is there. Like all of me is represented there. I don't feel like it's just a shattered partial representation.
Yeah.
And then something about that approach, but with spray paint, unlocked a demon in me for real. And it just like, it's like, in Evil Dead, when you open the Necronomicon, you just get sucked in. It was like that. It was like I felt an unstoppable force. And since then, I've painted like 100 murals around the world.
Wow.
And spray paint is this amazing tool that like allows you to simultaneously paint rendered portraiture and super sharp vector graphics without changing the tool.
Yeah.
And no tape, no stencils, just freehand. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced like a flow state where you kind of go on autopilot and you're just doing it without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And there were definitely moments where I stepped back and like looked at what I did and was like surprised. And I was like, I couldn't do that twice.
Yeah.
I don't know how to replicate that at all.
I mean, we've both had the ability to watch you work, and it blows my mind. Like it's even like the use of spray paint. It's like it's a liquid like blasting out of a can. Like how do you? I don't even understand how you control it and how you make such beautiful things. And watching you work, it was like you were so fast at it, which I'm sure comes from.
It's really fast.
Yeah.
It's a fast medium.
Yeah.
And I started doing murals kind of like 2010 or something. I had done murals before that. I've been like all around the world painting like smaller murals, through Brazil and Asia and Europe. But at that time, there began this appetite for large scale public art.
Yeah.
And I happened to be ready and rocking right at that moment. And over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen this explosion of large muralism around the planet. And it's the biggest explosion of public art in human history, period. Awesome. But
So awesome.
I feel like graffiti gave birth to a generation of muralists.
Yeah.
Because we can all paint bigger and faster than the generation before us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine with a paintbrush out there
No.
trying to do a giant wall?
No,
Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't even be doing it. So it's been a pretty wild ride, but I think, most artists are constantly searching. You're searching for like, okay, well, if I can do this, then I could probably do it a little better. And then where does it end?
Yeah.
You're always kind of searching or chasing the dragon, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I feel like getting to where I am now took a really long time. I'm in my mid-40s, and I wish I was doing this body of work earlier, but I wasn't. I didn't know how to yet. I couldn't get there yet, and I had to like find all the pieces of the puzzle first and then throw them together.
Yeah, and I feel like you're still like evolving, like the things that you do with NFTs and like the generative stuff you're doing is again, it like blows my mind, and I love the fact that you're evolving and you're staying relevant.
Thanks,
and,
man.
It's very cool.
Thanks, dude. I mean, you can always get better, right?
Yeah,
I think when I'm 60, I'll be better than when I was 50.
for sure.
And that's not even very far from now. I feel really old.
Listen, I just turned 40, so I feel
Wow.
I feel you. But I tell everyone it's 27. I just turned 27.
I mean, I'm just happy that I'm not, obese and bald yet.
you go.
There's still plenty of time.
Yeah, you're still
Yeah.
kicking.
I'm working harder than ever to like kind of actually stay healthy. I'm a dad now. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's
Yeah,
Day.
happy Father's Day.
There we go. And so that definitely like factors into my approach to my work too. I need to stay healthy and active and be the best I can be, but also like I'm doing projects that will keep giving long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of the artwork I'm creating, if I do an exhibition, I take into consideration, okay, well, I want this to be a body of work that can live on and not be captured in time, but something that is more timeless.
Right.
So that, my family can be, making money off it years after I'm gone, man. This is
Right.
something I have to consider. And also creating extra work from every body of work that I do to hold on to keep in our collection, to sell later.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, I'm like being very serious about that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah. Crazy. Of your mural work, is there a particular piece that stands out to you? Like, that's it. That's my, I don't want to say favorite, but like, because I personally, I feel like every time I do something, it's my favorite until I do the next thing.
Totally, dude.
But is there one that stands out? Like, I fucking nailed that one.
That's a tough question to answer, but I think that there's a few pieces that are a good example of when I'm at my best.
Yeah.
There's a mural I did in Deep Ellum, Texas, that I think is probably a good example of that, where it's me with a lot of creative freedom, but at blockbuster scale,
Yeah.
and telling a lot of stories at the same time in one image. And Deep Ellum was one of the first freed slave cities.
Wow.
So it was a town of freed slaves, and all this charged history's there. And now it's like a music town where there's like more bars in every block than anywhere else in America, just jammed together. And it's this really vibrant place. And there's so much history to tell there that I did like a kind of a loose sketch for the client and said, like, look, as an outsider, I don't live there. I can't presume to know enough to Google myself a mural from afar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's a loose sketch, but I reserve the right to finish it went there.
Yeah.
And spent like 2 weeks just absorbing the city and doing weird research and uncovering stuff. And
that's awesome.
That mural has a lot of layers.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of the scale of it. Like it depicts a black cowgirl holding the reins, and she's actually looking directly at the North Star, which anyone knows the Underground Railroad is how they navigate it out. And I stand about half as tall as her iris.
Oh wow!
In the mural,
Holy
it's
shit.
huge. It's really big, man. But I love doing the research.
Yeah.
And another mural that I enjoyed doing is in New York on Fifth Avenue, right by Empire State Building. It's called The Gilded Lady.
Yeah.
And that client actually paid for me to hire a New York City public historian, to dig deep in the library for me, to get me inspiration I wanted.
Wow.
And they wanted this mural to be about the Gilded Age in New York City, which was like 1890 to like 1910, like that period. And I was able to tell this historian, like, all right, give me posters from cabaret clubs from like 23rd Street to 34th Street between Broadway and Fifth Avenue from like, 1890, 1910.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they would. It was a real luxury.
Yeah, wow.
So I like those big challenges for public art. And I feel like it's a big honor to paint publicly like that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why advertising agencies pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for the public space.
Of course.
Because it influences people and affects
like
people. Subconsciously?
Yeah, subconsciously. I mean, it's something you see, if you absorb, like...
Well, dude, there's actually some science to that.
Really?
There's I should have come prepared with my notes on this, but there's a study that was done on people in a classroom taking a test. And all the answers were on the back. And so they told everyone in the classroom, okay, take the test. You have 30 minutes. The answers are on the back. Do not look. Whatever you do, don't look at the answers. And they ran this experiment with a number of people with and without a giant photograph of an eyeball on the chalkboard. Okay? The presence of the eyeball, just the subliminal notion that you're being watched, made people more ethical.
Wow.
People cheated less with the eyeball.
That's incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And that same phenomenon works outdoors with littering.
Okay.
Presence of eyeballs makes people actually a little more self-conscious and act better.
Interesting.
So if that works, what else would work?
Yeah.
Right.
Like
peace murals and
yeah,
things like
and
that.
it's part of why a lot of people from my world hate advertising.
Yeah.
Like, you hate graffiti, but the zombie nun on the billboard's okay?
Yeah.
Screw you.
Yeah.
It's so irresponsible and unfair and weird how Western culture treats public space.
Yeah.
And what art is allowed to be there. And no one voted to have that zombie nun.
Yeah.
I mean, no one voted for the graffiti either, but at least we have the balls to take it ourselves.
At least it's coming from the community.
And at least it's free speech, and it's someone saying, I exist, and beautifying gray or brown concrete, know?
Yeah.
Is there a country out there that you think is doing it right in terms of like street art?
I've seen some interesting approaches to it that are fascinating, like painting in Denmark was fun. They have some public legal graffiti parks.
Oh, wow.
And they're not where like the drug dealers hang out. It's like, moms with, prams and people picnicking, but just walls and walls and walls and walls, and everyone can just paint.
Wow.
And what the city found, this is in Aalborg, Denmark, what they found is that illegal tagging dropped by like 50%.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, I love illegal tagging, don't get me wrong. But I think that there's something to be said for using those numbers to convince American leaders on a civic level to create spaces for that.
Yeah.
The way we have skate parks, I'd love for there to be art parks, because so many people want to grow up to be Shepard Fairey or Banksy or work in spray paint. Like the generation of kids out there now love graffiti dearly, and every museum that does a graffiti show has record attendance. This is like where the young people are at, and the art they love and want to support and digest and also aspire to. But guess what? You can't learn how to spray paint like me.
Right.
You have to go do it illegally, which separates the mice from the men, so to speak. And that's good to a certain extent.
Sure.
But not everyone is trying to be the next Cap or like hardcore street bomber. Some people just want to paint and learn how to use spray paint.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere to do that without risking getting, a criminal record. And if you're an inner city kid and you're, not a white, blue-eyed little angel, you might be getting arrested and you might be getting a charge, and now you're in the system and have a criminal record. And I think that is atrocious,
Yeah.
So, I'd love there to be more like Denmark.
That's
I'd
amazing.
love there to be more parks like that.
I'd never even heard about that in Denmark, but that's an incredible idea. But and here in America, we don't really, give back to the communities in ways that make any sort of difference. So
yeah,
I
think that it would be amazing to see it as like an add-on to like Tony Hawk's skate parks that are already out there.
Yeah.
Like he already did the work to get those approved. Just add on to it.
Just a couple more walls.
Let's go. Yeah, and I've thought about how great it could be. You'd have to like have like a set of commandments that are like sculpted in concrete coming off the walls. They can't be painted over.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, paint your piece, get your photo and leave. No one can have ownership over them. Like there's ways it's been done around the world in a really productive manner that helps young artists learn and whatever. It's awesome.
Right.
But, Brazil's wild. I love doing graffiti in Brazil.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, it's so different all around the world, but graffiti is like an infectious global phenomenon.
Right.
And one of the biggest secret societies on the planet.
Right. I'm not super well traveled, but the places I have been, like I went to Berlin a couple of times, and I remember going there and just being like, "What the fuck?" There's graffiti on every surface.
On everything. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, dude.
Some of it not great, but a lot of it pretty cool. But
well, listen, I've said it before. The best and worst thing about street art is that anyone could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Well, let's talk about what you're working on now, because I know we're all super excited about it, and I'm sure that everyone that follows you is also super excited about it. But you are now working on a collaboration with Marvel, and you're getting ready to drop like a billion different things. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Full circle to what we were saying about the comic industry.
Yeah.
I was either delusional or really arrogant when I was like a 22-year-old. When I saw how little people get paid to work in comics, I remember thinking back then, I might have even said it out loud, that I'd rather wait till I can work with them on eye level and do something as a more established artist, as opposed to getting paid peanuts and working up through the bottom or something. That was my dream, was to like work with them one day sideways. And now I have this chance to work with Marvel, and it's just a dream come true, and I'm really hoping I don't screw it up.
You won't. From what I've seen, you won't.
Thank you. I hope not. But this is my second project with them. But the way it is that I'm technically a licensee. So I brought this idea to them. We found the right people to talk to, set up a meeting, and we went in there and just said, "Hey, I know you don't know who I am, but this is my dream. Give us a chance."
Yeah.
And I pitched them, give me the license to do high-end fine art prints using Marvel properties.
Yeah.
And it took a few years to bring to life, but now it's happening.
Wow.
And the first collection is Women of Marvel. So it's basically high-end fine art prints of varying sizes, featuring Storm, Spider-Woman, She-Hulk, Mystique, and Jean Grey.
Wow.
So those are my first 5.
Yeah.
And then next year, I think we're going to do Villains, which is
awesome.
very
That'd be
exciting.
Cool. Yeah.
But we're doing a wild first drop, which is kind of learning or applying what I learned in the NFT world, because I'm not supposed to use the word generative because it sounds too much like AI.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But there's no AI involved in anything we're making.
Right. See, I was curious about the tech behind how it was happening, but I wasn't sure if I could ask that. So I'm glad that you volunteered that information.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing off the shelf. He wrote the script and the software himself.
Yeah, wow.
and it is awesome. And he has this generator that we made, that we trained together, and you can sit there and hit the button and generate outcomes and then change the percentages.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really beautiful about it is that every single one's one of a kind, but you also get the data with each print. And it says how rare it is and what percentage of the whole collection have the blue X-Men logo. Yeah. Or this one spiral background, or whatever it is. Every single trait is kind of spelled out.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and their percentages. It's like a lot of red meat to soak your teeth into.
Wow. It's like
as a collector.
Yeah, it's like a DNA test almost.
It is. It's exactly that. So we did that for my project. It was called Gemma, and it was a 3,000 piece collection. Every single one of a kind. And we built this really great community out of it. We did a party with Revenge of, where we gave away our Shepherd Fairy collaboration. Thank you for that. That was amazing. So this is using the same generator, but with way more variety. So with Gemma, there was only 2 portraits. There was the regular Gemma and a skull. But this one, there's 5 characters and 3 to 6 versions of every single character.
Wow.
And I broke it down into like a vintage version, a classic version, and a modern version. Yeah. So there's like old school Storm, there's Storm with the Mohawk, then there's modern Storm. And they all get collaged together.
So cool.
Yeah, and we're also kind of gamifying it to make everything just batshit crazy. So there's like golden ticket elements in the works. So you can actually win the canvas originals. You can win the big hand painted multiples that are like 4 feet by 4 feet. Some of them have like custom hand embellishments where like if you get the Phoenix, she's actually singed. We're burning the paper.
I love that.
Which is really fun. I just finished the Phoenix today.
Oh, wow.
It's bonkers, man. It's really crazy. It's so fun. But, I've really enjoyed working on it because that genre of comic book illustration, from Jim Lee and earlier, like, was such a huge part of my growing up and changed my DNA. And I aspired to be in that universe one day, and it's such an honor to finally be doing something with Marvel directly. I hope that I can make it something that lasts a long time and something that fans love.
I guarantee. I mean, it just every time I see something, it's like it blows my mind. And when you did the video drop, what was it, a month ago or a couple weeks ago, I was like so excited. Finally.
Thanks, man. Well, we're doing this first drop. Like I said, it's like 1,500 pieces, and they're 18 by 24. Very exciting. And then the next one we're doing is like a comic book size print.
Awesome.
Which is going to be really cool too. And we're doing something really special for how those are housed and packaged. And then this whole thing leads up to our finale, which is going to be in Miami during Art Basel, December 2024, at the Museum of Graffiti.
Wow.
And they're hosting like an expansive exhibition of all the originals and everything we did for this project.
That's awesome.
Will be on display, and I'm doing like a big mural. It's really, really going to be cool.
Awesome. I'm God, I love the way that your drops are so interactive with like the way you the order in which you release things, and it makes it so exciting for collectors and for even people who are casual collectors. I think it becomes exciting for them as well. So yeah, I can't
Thanks,
wait.
man. I mean, I think in the age of the algorithm, especially right now, a lot of artists have been struggling to keep their voice or find their voice. And I have this following, and when I post, it doesn't even reach everybody. So it's a little unpredictable. I don't really know. I think that, we're selling art, man, and it's always a challenge, but there's a little more one-on-one reaching out to people, and, it's not just like sending it to Instagram and you're good anymore. Like, we have to do some pretty hands-on reach out, which is fine. That's the way it used to be anyway.
It's
but
just figuring out the new ways to do it. Right?
Yeah, and I think that we enjoy interacting with the community and the collectors, fans, and a lot of them are friends. A lot of them we've known for a really long time. And we have been doing this for so long and we're not going anywhere. So it's kind of like you got to treat people well.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to deal with them for years. And we want everyone to be happy. We want to deliver a good product. And, you know, one of my rules is to never let it be boring.
Yeah.
You know, we have a print shop and we make experimental art prints, and let's have fun, man. Let's let's be weird and not make it predictable. So we've done like, you know, 3D prints with 3D glasses and flocked blacklight prints and, you know, prints that work as money and crazy stuff. Like, why not?
Is there something that you're like that's still on the list of things you want to do that you haven't quite gotten to yet? I mean, I'm sure there is, but
yeah, we're really hoping to find a new way to make toys that isn't so time and cost prohibitive in China.
Wow.
We have something up our sleeves for that I think could be really monumental. Because on two fronts, like, I love making toys. I love collecting toys.
Yeah.
But it's so prohibitive, the process, and working with China. It's so difficult. It used to be cheaper. I mean, you know, now it's just bonkers.
Really?
But back in the day, like, the minimum order quantity was like 50 pieces, 100 pieces, and you could really do that.
Right.
And then we'd break the mold, and you know, they'd be super valuable. It was really fun. It's not like that anymore. Now we're like stuck with product that didn't sell and yada, yada, yada. So we're kind of brainstorming a new model for how to make a toy company without any of that.
Cool.
Which is really exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah, because even when it comes to public art and the public sphere, I love doing mural work, but I also love making 3D objects.
Yeah.
And I want to break into doing public sculpture.
Oh.
And I want that to be a part of the collectibles as well, like smaller sculpture to bigger public sculpture. So that's kind of what I'm missing and waiting to do. You know, a combination of that thing.
That's cool. I'd love to see like a giant public sculpture of yours. I can only imagine what something like that would be like.
Well, you know, you saw the fist sculpture. The sideshow, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to do a peace sign that's like that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That would be so sick.
But you know, the only problem with that one is that you can't have that in England. You walk around behind and it's right. Fuck you. So I have to put like a sign on it that says, if you're British, kindly walk back to the other side of the sculpture. But I want to do stuff like that.
Yeah. What did you think about that? What was that art piece recently? The like portal thing? What did you think about that?
Oh, they asked for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
They asked for it, dude. It was to Ireland, right?
Dublin, in like the bar district.
No one was like, you know what? Maybe we don't.
So
do
funny. And you know, the thing is, like, my mom says this all the time, that the Irish are the funniest people in the world. Like, the average person in Ireland is funny, you know? So, I mean, you know, Ireland to New York, like, come on, man. It's going to go south. It's pretty hilarious.
That's so funny. So when is the drop date for the Marvel stuff? It's July?
First week of August, is our first drop.
Cool.
That's for the big collection. It's called the Portrait Collection.
Yeah.
And that's first week of August.
Where can we find that?
All of this is exclusively at tristaneaton.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the only place where we can sell this Marvel collaboration.
Super cool.
And man, I'm scared, but really excited.
Well, it's a good thing you're scared, right? Because if you weren't, then I don't know. You know?
It's forcing me to like really make sure it's cool.
Yeah.
But you know, I think there's like a lot riding on it for us. We want this to be something that continues for a long time. So thank you for all your help and being so supportive, you guys. It means a lot, you know. I mean, also how lucky am I to have like the coolest comic book shop in the world a couple blocks away from my house, and they got a podcast?
We're only cool by the people that surround us to make us cool.
Okay. It goes two ways, man. You make people feel pretty good and pretty cool, dude.
Well, thank you so much for coming by today.
You,
and this was such a great interview, and you know, I'm excited to listen to this back and hear all these amazing
thanks,
stories.
Man.
Like every time I talk to you, I hear some cool story that I'm like, wow.
Well, I got started really young, man. So like,
Yeah.
I feel like I've been through a lot of wars
Yeah.
as an artist, so it's nice to be able to chat about it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Well, that was Tristan Eaton, and first week of August, check out tristaneaton.com, and we'll drop more as more comes out.
All right. Well, thank you, Tristan, for joining us. We hope to be doing some more of these cool things in the future. And thank you guys for hanging out for this special episode. And we'll see you next week.
Shh.